Hello, this is Dr. Lorenz, Longevity Health Institute, and I hope this finds you well. I'm sure you've heard of, maybe know of somebody in recently that has had a heart attack or unfortunately maybe passed away from a cardiac event or a sudden death. And I'm here to tell you some things that are brought up to us a lot here in the practice because we are prevention and wellness, and that is how to prevent that and what we think about cholesterol and statins and how do you really prevent these things. And I'm here to tell you a couple things that I'm going to give you the end story first before the beginning, but is that the number one predictor of a heart attack is a previous heart attack, okay? And 80% of heart attack risk reduction is done by lifestyle, okay? And cholesterol is not everything, I promise you. So I want to review something with you, which is a great article that I pulled out of Epoch Times. So I'm gonna be distracted a bit and reflect on and read some things from here just to bring you up to speed. But it's a very good analysis, very good review, meta-analysis of years of studies on cholesterol, statins, our diet, lifestyle things, and particularly like statin use and if it's beneficial or not, and kind of how this all gets really, really confusing. But remember what I just said, the number one predictor of a heart attack is a previous heart attack. So meaning, if you've had a heart attack before, okay, that's when you really, if you're fortunate enough to live, okay? Unfortunately, some people, the first symptom of a heart attack is death, okay? But if you've been fortunate enough out there to live, you need to take this very serious and listen to what I'm saying about primary prevention, secondary prevention, but 80% of things are lifestyle. So you need to move, get your inflammation in your body down, lose weight, reverse diabetes or insulin resistance, and you're causing the biggest risk reduction there is, whether your cholesterol moves or not or shifts or not, okay? But let me share some things with you about this article. So a couple things is this, a lot of the information about cholesterol and statin use and all that is very confusing, but it started back in 1987 when they approved because of some dietary research and that look anecdotal that cholesterol was linked to heart disease, and they approved lovastatin was approved in 1987, and it was regarded as this like life-saving drug, and they even reported at least 50% reduction back then of heart attack events. Well, it was very overhyped, and even a physician here, a Scottish-based physician that did multiple reviews, Malcolm Kendrick here, multiple reviews of multiple studies of over 90,000 people, okay, and over 21 published journal reviews, okay. His quote is, "It was way hyped benefits." Okay, so the benefits at that time were like, oh, this is a miracle drug. Well, there's more to be said about that, okay? The interesting thing is that we didn't really see what was thought, okay? And this inflation of data really broke down to some basic things, okay? In fact, a study back here in 2008 that was reported actually in the New York Times that there was heart attacks by these statins were actually cut in half. But then when you really looked at the absolute, what we call risk reduction for a multitude of studies, okay, and in one study was over 17,000 people, but in multiple studies, the absolute reduction in these studies was approximately 1%. So the risk reduction, whether you had a placebo or a experimental, medication, or nothing, was literally less than 1%. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that, when you take all these people and you take all this data, you have to consider what is the benefit, because when you talk about 1%, 1 out of 100 people, is it really the driver, okay? So when they looked at further studies, bigger reviews. This was 21 clinical studies on statins, and this was an investigation in the Journal of the American Medical Association, okay? That was a review on, again, 21 reviews of meta-analyses, okay? The absolute risk reduction was of all cause mortality, 0.8%. And for heart attacks, it was 1.3%. Okay. So these are modest at best, right? Okay. And the thing is, there are side effects, which we're going to get to. Okay. And then you talk about all these close financial ties that Big Pharma has, and, you know, the food industry has, and what's tied behind this, you know, with insurance and, you know, et cetera. Okay. Don't ever, you know, forget that. Okay. And you have to be your own advocate, and with your provider and practitioner, be looking out for your best interest, because when you put all this together, it is not your solution. In heart protection and life-saving protection is not in a pill, always. I'm not saying never, but always. And again, this is another study in the Journal of American Cardiology 2015. They found that nearly 80% of the trials had conflicting interests, okay, with pharmaceutical companies or drug companies or research facilities that supported that, okay? These benefits were way, 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 way overhyped, okay? You know, by the way, when this happened, and then a data in 2013, you know, came out that, hey, it was all about LDL, and, you know, these major reductions, et cetera, were happening and all that. They found that literally there was more than 150% increase in prescriptions of these statins, over 92 million people, okay, between 2013 and 2019. Were put on statins, yet heart attacks and cardiovascular disease unchanged, basically statistically unchanged. Think about that, okay? Here's the one interesting thing that I want to share with you. Is when a lot of the, you know, symptoms are downplayed, okay, of the side effects. So, you know, we hear stuff occasionally, GI stuff, or we'll hear like, you know, I just don't feel great, I'm a little tired, and I can tell you why this is from statins. And once in a while cognitive stuff, but these are facts. There are studies that report anywhere from 51 to 70%, okay, and this is in reviews of reported side effects, okay, are related to muscle, cognitive decline, and major fatigue. Now, I will say that majority of people have some type of muscle effect where they realize or not. It causes an inflammation of their mitochondria and their muscles. Maybe they don't even notice it because they're older, they're 50s, 60s, 70s, and so they basically think that it's arthritis or joint inflammation. But the minute they are taken off, and I'll do this with them when they're new, and we'll say, let's just try without, if I think they're safe enough to be without, and they're not, you know, using it for secondary prevention, they've not had a previous heart attack, okay? And they'll go, oh, wow, man, in a week or two, my joints are better, my energy came up, they felt better. We need cholesterol for communication between cells, okay? We need good mitochondria to have energy, to have muscle function, have heart function, to pump. We need cholesterol for our brain, okay, for our myelin in our brain. I'll share something with that with you. But there are a lot of side effects in there, kind of downplayed, and I will tell you that. Here's a thing that I found kind of disturbing, because you've seen in some other videos about the importance of cognitive health, okay, and keeping your brain sharp with aging, because it's happening to all of us. It's just a matter of when. Hopefully we can, you know, kick that can down the road for cognitive decline and memory effects and dementia and all that into our late 80s or 90s, okay? But statistically, this is looking like it's happening here sooner. And we actually will see this in DNA testing here, and in some, you know, cognitive objective testing that we do, brain analysis, brain speed analysis, and that we will see people be 10 years ahead of their chronologic age. That ain't good, okay? So we got to get ahead of this. But here's an interesting thing. Are we making it worse by statin use? I mean, you could debate that. You could argue that. But again, individually, you need to look at the individual. But here's a very, very interesting study that was reported in 2021. And that was cognitive skills and mini mental exam, okay, was taken on individuals, okay, when they were on their statin, okay? And the mini mental exam is pretty normal, pretty reasonable at a score of 27. But under that, we start worrying about mild cognitive impairment. So that, this is where you get brain fog, memory loss, things like this, okay? When they measured those people, their scores were 22. So remember, 27, 30 is perfect. 27, it's acceptable, but you're at the cutoff. They were 22. When they were removed from the statin for 6 weeks, their cognitive improvement after they discontinued the statin went up to 27. And then when they were put back on the statin for 6 weeks, they resumed taking the statin, it went back down to 22. There is 100% link between your brain function and using statins and too much cholesterol reduction, okay? So considering that these are used just because, I have patients come in, they're 30, 35 years old, they're on a statin, they're like, well, my cholesterol's high, so they put it on it, okay? And my dad had a heart attack at 60. But pump the brakes on that. Be your own advocate. Seek out wellness preventative physicians and practitioners, okay, like us here. Because why? Because it's going to cause you more harm potentially than good. Now remember, if you've had a previous heart attack, you're at the biggest risk. So that's where the statin may be taking its place. But again, want to share some things with you. If you have hypertension, if you're diabetic, if you're obese, these are other risks that put you into that secondary prevention category. But if you're working on lifestyle and you're working with somebody like us here, okay, and you're doing some of these reductions in your weight and your cholesterol and your diabetes and your inflammation, that we can measure all these things, okay? Besides the advanced tests that we do, like CT angiograms with artificial intelligence, like genetic testing that we do for hereditary, cardiovascular conditions and cardiomyopathies, like lipid testing that we look at particle size, which I'll get to, that puts you at risk, okay? But when we do these, we know definitively who's at risk. The amount of statins I write is astronomically less than the general physician population, okay? And yes, that probably doesn't make a lot of big pharma or maybe even some other physicians happy, but I'll tell you what, my practitioners here don't have hopefully not my practitioners, but my patients here don't have heart attacks. But I want to tell you a little bit about the bad cholesterol myth. A meta-analysis of 19 published studies in the British Medical Journal, researchers found that people with the highest cholesterol, LDL, live longer than individuals with the lowest LDL cholesterol, which is totally conflicting with things you're being told, okay? What we really want to look at, and there's a lot of evidence and data and studies that support this, is what's called total LDL particle volume or particle size. You want your LDLs to be large, buoyant, or large LDLs. When they're small, okay, and that total LDL cholesterol volume is higher, and there's a cutoff range usually, that we can talk about, but then that you're at risk. So you want your LDLs, the particle number, to be big and buoyant, okay, regardless of that number. If that number is 300, but your LDLs are large and buoyant, and you literally don't have many risks and never a previous heart attack, I am telling you, you are dealing with slivers of a percentage in reduction of taking a statin and worrying about your cholesterol. You need to worry about inflammation, insulin resistance, your weight, your moving your body and exercise, okay, hormones, but lifestyle stuff, diet, obviously, okay? One thing I just want to tell you, because this was in the Journal of American Medical Association, a 2021 meta-analysis, analyzed the effects of statins in primary prevention, okay? These are people without previous heart attacks, so they just had high cholesterol, okay? Ages 50 to 75, researchers found no benefit in overall mortality rates, meaning death rates, okay? So remember, it's the number one predictor is previous heart attack, okay? And lifestyle is 80% of the cause of cardiovascular disease. And if you do good background, good testing and looking into things. Now I want to take just a few minutes to tell you about a couple things, like, again, what's the best way to know who's at risk if you haven't had a heart attack is knowing, number one, patient's motivation. Are you willing to change? Are you willing to move your body? Are you willing to lose weight? Are you willing to take some supplements and some lifestyle changes, to get your cholesterol maybe a little bit, but your blood pressure, your sugar under control, get your blood moving, etc. Okay? If you're willing to be a compliant, motivated patient, we can reverse all this, okay? And we can extend your life and not do just a drug. It's easy to take a drug, but you're kicking the can down the road to further problems, meaning likely a heart attack still, likely a stroke still, and definitely dementia, okay? So open your mind and eyes to that, because that's the facts, okay? That's the truth, not adjusted, reanalyzed, manipulated, financially conflicted, supported data, okay? We also, though, are big believers in doing deep dive assessments of your cardiovascular system. So, carotid flow intimal thickness in your carotids, CT angiograms with artificial intelligence, clearly exams, and cardiac flow analysis of your heart. We have here in-house in the office where we can do endothelial function testing, endopat, and vascular, flow issues for peripheral vascular disease and earlier hypertension. And then we have tests like this, hereditary from Ambry Genetics, where we can rule out if you have evidence of cardiomyopathy or sudden cardiovascular, disease issues or death or lipids, okay, that are genetic, because then that changes the picture a bit. But the fact here is you got to get personalized care, personalized attention, have trust in your practitioner and provider, because that is what will bring you results, okay? Last message is hard work, passion, dedication is everything with results. These are success facts. Success in living long and healthy. Luck is 1%. And excuses is 0%. Do the right thing. This is Dr. Lorenz.